I've spent most of my life staring at maps, not people. So when I got an offer to chart an unrecorded stretch of land in the Pacific Northwest, I didn't hesitate. I've worked in cartography since college, drones, GIS, satellite overlays, but something about this job was refreshingly analog. The offer came from a private restoration firm, obscure and without a website. They were working on archival preservation of regional communities and needed updated topography of a town that, according to public records, didn't exist. Wyrrow, Oregon. No postal code. No census data. No major roads leading in. Just a red dot on an old geological survey map from 1946. I asked my contact, a man named Clifton Hale, how that was possible. He said, "That's why we're hiring you." The contract was simple. I'd be paid $8,000 for 4 days of mapping. No cell reception expected. Bring backup batteries, food, a radio. They'd supply a cabin, coordinates, and paper maps to cross-check the terrain. I signed immediately. I was used to remote work, and something about Wyrrow intrigued me. It felt like I was stepping back into a forgotten America where the woods kept their own secrets. I left Portland at sunrise. The GPS lost its signal halfway through the drive, so I followed printed directions, winding roads, cracked asphalt, no signage. Around noon, I turned off the main highway and crossed a one-lane iron bridge. Below, a river curved sharply like a spine. From there, it was 30 miles of dirt road. Trees loomed taller than buildings. The sun struggled to touch the ground through the canopy. My ears popped from the elevation shift. The further I went, the more I noticed the quiet, no birds, no insects, not even the rustle of wind. When I finally reached Wyrrow, it didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. Wooden homes lined a single curved road. None had visible power lines. The windows were dark, but not broken. There were clotheslines, rocking chairs, a dog sleeping on a porch. People lived here. And yet, no sound. The man who met me at the edge of town had a full beard and a sheriff's badge, though there was no station in sight. He introduced himself as Harris, and without shaking hands, gestured to my Jeep. "You from Clifton's office?" he asked. I nodded. "He told me you'd help me get settled." Harris didn't smile. "Cabin's up on the ridge. Follow the signs with the white ribbon. You'll see them nailed to the trees." He started to turn away, but I had questions. "No one uses cell service out here?" "No towers. No need." I glanced around. "And the power grid?" He stared at me, eyes pale and unblinking. "We have our own rhythms in Wyrrow. Stick to your job. You'll be fine." Before I could respond, he walked off, slow, deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. The cabin was nicer than expected. One story, with a wraparound porch and an oil lantern already burning inside. A welcome basket sat on the wooden table, canned beans, crackers, a folded flannel blanket, and a note in perfect cursive. "Do not walk the roads after sunset. If you must speak, do so softly. Do not use your name aloud. Wyrrow Welcoming Committee." I read it twice. Then I laughed, nervously. Some kind of town tradition, maybe. Or a prank for outsiders. I unpacked, set up my drone equipment, and planned to start mapping at first light. But curiosity gnawed at me. I wanted to see more of the town. Maybe meet someone besides Harris. Around 5 p.m., I walked down to the town square. If you could call it that, just a cluster of buildings, an old church, a general store, and what looked like a shuttered diner. I didn't see a soul, but I felt watched. I leaned against the railing of the dry fountain in the center, pulling out my notebook. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Too low to understand. Too close to ignore. I spun around. No one. Just long shadows from the trees. That night, the silence outside was too complete. I tried the radio Clifton had packed, static. I tried reading, but my eyes kept flicking to the windows. Around 1 a.m., I woke to the sound of wood creaking. Not inside. Outside the cabin. I sat up in bed, every hair on my arms upright. Another creak. Slow. Heavy. Like footsteps on the porch. I didn't move. Then a soft tap. Tap, tap, tap. On the window behind me. I turned slowly. My breath caught in my throat. A shadow. Just the silhouette of a head. No face. Just darkness. I blinked, and it was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When the sun rose, the note on the table had changed. Same handwriting. New message. You used your name. You were heard. I didn't remember speaking my name. Not aloud. But maybe I did. Maybe I'd muttered it on the drive-in, or while unpacking, or God help me, when I whispered to myself before bed, like I sometimes do when I'm trying to stay grounded. Still, how could someone have known? The new note on the cabin table was fresh. Same ink. Same cursive. No footprints outside. No sounds. No explanation. I stood there for a long time, rereading the words. You used your name. You were heard. I burned the note in the fireplace. I set out that morning determined to focus on the job. I launched my drone from a clearing near the ridge and started overlaying aerial images on the old paper maps they gave me. Something was wrong. The town didn't match the topography. Roads on the map curved through areas where there were no trees. Entire clusters of buildings, homes, outbuildings were missing from the satellite footage. Worse, when I marked a church on the map, the coordinates pulled up a dense cluster of pine trees instead. It wasn't a small discrepancy. It was impossible. Either the map was a complete fabrication, or something had rewritten the terrain. As I checked the data, I noticed something stranger. In the sound logs from the drone's camera, ambient background recording, there were faint, layered whispers. Not wind, not glitching. Whispers. And beneath them, one repeated phrase. Where is he going? Where is he going? I killed the drone feed, and I ran back to the cabin. That night, the shadows grew longer than they should have. I don't know how else to describe it. The oil lantern inside cast a normal circle of light, but the shadows it threw? They bent upward, crawled across the ceiling. One reached toward me like it wanted to touch my throat. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. When I opened them, it was gone, but the air felt thicker. My own breath echoed too loudly in the room. Like the cabin wasn't sealed off from outside, it was echoing something inside, something beneath. On day 3, I visited the town again. It wasn't courage. It was desperation. I walked the road in daylight, just after sunrise. The fog still clung to the trees. This time, I saw a few people. An older man sweeping his porch with precise, mechanical motions. A woman carrying a basket of dry roots. Neither looked at me. Neither smiled. I waved. Nothing. They walked like their bodies remembered how to move, but their minds were somewhere else entirely. Then I noticed a boy, maybe 9 years old, sitting on the steps of the chapel. He looked up and stared directly at me. I waved. He waved back. I approached slowly. Hey, I said, keeping my voice low. He nodded once. I knelt near him. Can I ask you something? Do you know why no one here talks? He looked at me for a while. Then he whispered. They're afraid of being heard. I swallowed. By who? The boy blinked. The shadows. And you're not afraid? He tilted his head. I don't speak after dark. You did. Now they know your sound. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a torn piece of paper. Folded. He pressed it into my hand. Before I could ask anything else, a tall figure emerged from behind the church. A woman. Stiff posture. Dead expression. The boy stood quickly and walked away without a word. The woman stared at me until I left. Back in the cabin, I unfolded the paper. A hand-drawn map. Not of the town. Of the forest behind it. Marked in red ink, a circle, a strange spiral symbol, and one sentence written beneath it. Where they bury the names. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. I reached the spot by early evening. No trail. I used my compass and stepped carefully through the undergrowth. The trees thinned into a glade, perfectly circular, where no birds sang. In the center, an obelisk of carved black stone, about 6 feet tall. All around it were dozens, maybe hundreds, of wooden nameplates, each buried half in the soil, like gravestones. The names were carved crudely. Some were broken, some upside down. But what made my skin crawl? Each name looked partially erased, as if something had eaten the wood from the inside out. I found one with a name I thought I recognized. Harris. Was that the sheriff? Before I could get closer, I heard a voice. My voice. It came from behind the obelisk. You shouldn't have come here. I turned. No one. Then from the left. We know your name now. You spoke it in the dark. I stepped back. My legs trembled. From behind. You were already becoming one of us. Shadows crept along the ground. Fast. As if the sun were setting too fast. I ran. Branches tore at my jacket. Roots caught my feet. But I didn't stop until I saw the cabin roof through the trees. I slammed the door shut and bolted it. Outside, nothing followed me. But inside? On the wall above the fireplace, something new had been carved during my absence. My name. And beneath it, a whisper I didn't hear with my ears, but with something deeper. Now you'll listen to us. The night after I saw the obelisk, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of the cabin with the oil lantern flickering, holding the boys' map in one hand and my own half-finished survey in the other. That's when I noticed it. The survey map, the one I'd drawn and printed before arriving, was different. In the bottom right quadrant, where I hadn't charted anything yet, there was now a faint line, a path, winding through the forest toward the center of Wyrrow. I hadn't drawn that. And the ink, it matched mine. But the stroke? Not mine. I laid the map flat on the desk and stared at it for an hour. Nothing changed. Then I left the room to wash my face. When I returned, another line had appeared, leading from the obelisk I'd visited to a new X drawn in bold black just outside the town border. Beside it, in the tiniest handwriting I'd ever seen, "Go here before they erase you." My hands went cold. I turned the map over. A fresh message had been scratched into the paper fibers from the underside, as though a knife had written it. You only leave if you take nothing. I no longer understood what I was mapping, or who was helping me, or who wanted me gone. That morning, I found the town completely changed. Same buildings, same layout. But now, every window was boarded shut. Every door marked with white chalk symbols, crosses, spirals, crescents. The people were gone. No one swept porches. No children sat by the chapel. The fountain was bone dry, cracked open down the middle like a hollow egg. I walked through the town with a growing sense of dread, whispering under my breath, "You're just working. Just here for the job. You'll finish and leave." Then I passed a building I hadn't noticed before. A single-story structure at the edge of town, a post office. Impossible. I would have seen it on day one. But here it stood, brick red with a faded sign. Wyrrow Post, EST 1907. The door was ajar. Inside, everything was blanketed in dust. Piles of unopened mail. Boxes with faded labels. A calendar on the wall, frozen on October 1981. And on the desk, an envelope addressed to Cartographer, contracted by Clifton Hale. I opened it. Inside was a typed letter. Do not rely on the maps you carry. This place was never drawn by human hands. The paths shift based on memory and regret. If you remain too long, it will begin to redraw you. The voices belong to those who tried to leave but carried something with them. An object, a name, a memory. Wyrrow demands silence, or it will speak for you. At the bottom, typed in red ink, if you have spoken your name, you must leave it behind. I backed out of the post office and ran. Back at the cabin, I started packing. I didn't care about the contract. I just wanted to get out. But when I stepped outside, I saw them. 6 townspeople standing motionless at the edge of the woods. Men and women, eyes closed, palms raised to the sky. Their mouths moved, whispering something I couldn't hear, something I wasn't supposed to hear. They stood in a perfect arc, blocking the road. I turned back inside and locked the door. My chest tightened. My hands trembled. I tried the radio again, static. Then something buzzed in my pocket. My phone. No signal. No battery, but it had turned on, and the screen showed a live image. My face, but not from the front, from behind, as if something were standing directly behind me, holding the phone. I didn't turn around. I closed my eyes, crushed the phone in my fist, and threw it into the fireplace. It cracked, hissed, and sparked as the plastic bubbled. And then, I heard the boy's voice again, but this time, inside my own skull. They're not watching you. They're drawing you. I looked back at the map, the self-writing one. Another line had appeared, a spiral, leading to the cabin, to the fireplace. I approached slowly, heart pounding. Beneath the ashes of the burning phone, something gleamed. I grabbed tongs and pulled it out. A metal coin, unfamiliar, smooth, blank except for a single word engraved on both sides. Say nothing. I don't remember putting it in my pocket, but it was there when I blinked again. I decided then I would follow the path marked on the map, the one labeled, "Go here before they erase you." I left just before sunset. The X led me behind the church, then deep into the woods. Thorns scratched my face. I stumbled twice, but I kept going. Eventually, I reached an open clearing. Another structure stood there, small, stone, sunken into the earth like a tomb. A stone door, barely 5 feet tall. No handle, but etched above it. To forget is to escape. And then I heard it, my own voice, speaking my name, over and over. Elliot, Elliot, Elliot. But I wasn't saying it. It was the stone, repeating it, dragging me down into the dirt, syllable by syllable. I fell to my knees. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. I clawed at the dirt until my fingers struck a wooden plaque, half buried, like the ones near the obelisk. I pulled it up. My name, freshly carved. I dropped it and ran. When I returned to the cabin, I saw the final message. On the front door, carved with something sharp. Last night, last name, last light. I barely made it back to the cabin before nightfall. As the last sliver of sun vanished behind the trees, the air shifted. It was subtle, a kind of inward folding. The wind died. The birds stopped. Even the insects vanished. It was like the world around Wyrrow held its breath. And then the shadows stretched. Every corner of the cabin grew darker. The oil lamp flickered once, then steadied, but the shadows it cast no longer followed the shape of the walls. They moved in ways I didn't recognize, as though they belonged to someone else entirely. That's when I realized something terrible. There was an extra shadow in the room. It stood just beside the fireplace. It didn't move when I moved. It didn't shift when I shifted. It stood there, arms at its sides, watching, waiting. I didn't dare speak. Then, from the hallway, I heard it. A voice. Not from outside. Not from the radio. From the map. It whispered from the page, rustling like breath on paper. We were all cartographers once. We all drew the same line. I turned toward the table. The map pulsed, slightly, like a heartbeat. Another line began sketching itself in black ink. Slowly, deliberately. It curved through the town, past the post office, around the obelisk, and up to the ridge overlooking the river, the exact path I'd taken on my way in. Then, next to it, the word. Return. Not leave. Return. I sat in the cabin until midnight. No more voices. No more whispers. But the map stayed alive, new markings appearing every few minutes. The chapel roof. The fountain's crack. Even the path I'd taken to the forgotten clearing. It was drawing my memory in real time. And I knew what the map wanted. Not to guide me out, but to rewrite me. That was the horror, wasn't it? Wyrrow didn't trap people with force. It didn't lock doors or chase you through the woods. It made you forget where you came from. It replaced your memories with its own, one line at a time. I grabbed the map and threw it into the fire. It didn't burn. Instead, the fire bent around it, flames recoiling like it was made of ice. Then I heard something upstairs. But the cabin had no upstairs. Or at least, it didn't yesterday. I looked at the ceiling. A hatch had appeared. A rope ladder hung down from it. I hadn't noticed it before. I shouldn't have noticed it now. And yet, it was there, waiting. I climbed. The ladder creaked under my weight. The air above was thick, heavier with each step. When I reached the attic, I found myself in a room I didn't recognize. Tall ceiling, circular walls, dozens of mirrors mounted in strange positions. Each mirror reflected a different version of the town. One showed Wyrrow in flames. Another, abandoned, overtaken by trees. One showed it glowing, ethereal, every building lit by soft blue fire. And in one mirror, I saw myself, older, pale, wearing the sheriff's badge, just like Harris. He raised a hand. So did I. He smiled. I didn't. I stepped back. Then I saw the final mirror, hidden in the farthest corner, cracked through the center. And it was a room just like the one I stood in. Only, no me. No reflection. Just the voice. This is the last light. Choose which version of you stays. The attic dimmed. The rope ladder vanished. I ran to where it had been, slamming my fist against the trapdoor. No sound. No movement. Then, from all the mirrors at once, came a whispering chorus. Leave your name behind. Give it to us. Trade it for silence. I collapsed. And when I woke, I was back in the cabin, on the floor. The attic was gone. The ceiling intact. But in my palm, I held a wooden tag, burned into it. Harris. That morning, I walked the town again. No one stopped me. But now I saw what I hadn't before. Every person wore a wooden tag around their neck, all with names that didn't match the ones on their mailboxes, didn't match their old family photos. Names not their own. They'd given theirs up, become someone else, survived, but hollow. I returned to the river bridge, where I first entered. It was still there, but something had changed. My Jeep? Gone. Only tire tracks remained, dissolving into the dirt like melting wax. The bridge itself was warped, the iron rusted, bent, almost swallowed by the trees, like it hadn't been used in decades. And the map in my back pocket? Blank now, except for one phrase scratched into the corner. If you remember this place, it still owns you. I turned around, and for the first time, I saw Harris again, the sheriff, standing at the edge of the woods. But now I understood. He wasn't Harris. He was the last one who left and survived. And now, he was me. That night, back in the cabin, I said my name aloud for the last time. I whispered it into the mirror. I watched my lips move. Then I burned the last photo of myself. When I went to bed, I dreamed of the boy again. He stood at the obelisk, smiling, holding a mirror. He said, "Now they'll draw your lines instead." I woke up without fear, because the next morning, I no longer remembered my real name, just the tag in my hand. Harris. I no longer dream in words. I dream in routes. Every night since I gave up my name, I see Wyrrow from above, the way the shadows crawl across its rooftops, the way the trees bend slightly inward, as though listening. I see how the roads knot and tangle like veins. And always, always, there is a center I cannot reach. The spiral. The place where the whispers begin and end. I've stopped questioning how long I've been here. Time doesn't function the way it used to. I still eat. I still sleep. I still walk the ridge with a radio that doesn't work and a map that writes itself as I go. But the man I was, Elliot, is gone. That name has been buried, just like the rest. Now I wear the wooden tag around my neck. Harris. And every so often, I feel a sharp ache in my palms. I used to think it was from climbing trees or handling rough tools. But lately, I've begun to wake with charcoal dust under my nails. And my maps? I don't remember drawing them. 3 days ago, or maybe 3 weeks, a stranger arrived. I saw him step out of a dusty SUV at the forest's edge. He looked confused, cautious, carrying a case of gear and a paper notebook. I didn't need to ask what he was doing. I already knew. A new cartographer. They always come the same way. And Wyrrow always lets them in. I watched him from the trees. I followed him to the cabin. Same one I used. It looked different now, older, with moss creeping up the walls and a roof that groaned with every gust of wind. That night, I placed a note inside, in neat cursive. Do not walk the roads after sunset. If you must speak, do so softly. Do not use your name aloud. I left it on his table, just like they left it for me, just like I always do. Because that's my role now, isn't it? I'm the one who welcomes them. The next morning, I returned to the spiral glade, the place I once fled from, the place I now understand. The obelisk stood unchanged, black stone, slick and gleaming despite the sun. Around it, new nameplates had appeared. 3 dozen, maybe more, each half buried in the soil, each partially faded, as though the memory of each person were slowly dissolving. I found mine. Not Harris, the original. Elliot Ravenwood. The name was nearly gone, barely legible. I knelt and touched it, and I remembered something I hadn't thought about in what felt like years. A photograph, taken in college. My first internship. Laughing on a rocky overlook, holding a compass, arms around people I can't quite place. But as quickly as the memory returned, it vanished again. Swallowed. I whispered, I'm still me, into the silence. But even that sounded like a lie. Later that evening, I wandered to the edge of the map. Literally. There's a point where every hand-drawn trail just ends. A place none of the lines cross. I stood there with a blank sheet and a pencil, waiting for something to draw itself. And something did. The pencil lifted in my hand. It moved, slow at first, then faster, more confident. A shape formed. But it wasn't a trail. It was a door, set in the earth, marked with the spiral, labeled only. Listen. I didn't tell anyone. Not that anyone would have responded. The town is full of names that never speak. I followed the path the pencil drew. The door was real, buried under soil and roots, sealed with stone. But as I approached, it cracked open on its own. Inside, I found a library. Endless corridors. No lights, yet everything visible. Dustless. Ageless. Every wall lined with maps. Drawn in hand. On parchment. On leather. On bone. Maps of cities that never existed. Oceans that never were. Buildings twisted into impossible geometry. And among them, one that made me fall to my knees. It was Wyrrow, but drawn from the inside. Every home, every tree, every room. And at the center, in the church, beneath the altar, a pit. From it, threads stretched outward like nerves, feeding the town, tethering it to every mind that entered, feeding on names. That's how Wyrrow survives. It is not a town. It's a thought, a parasite, a cartography of memory. And every new arrival helps redraw its limits, unknowingly expanding it. Every time we walk the paths, record coordinates, speak our names. We grow it. We let it learn. We let it speak. When I emerged, the sun was gone. The town was different. Buildings rearranged. Paths bent. Trees closer. I stood in front of the chapel. The boy was there again. Older now. He looked at me like he'd been waiting. I asked, how long has it been? He shrugged. Long enough for you to become the voice. Then he handed me a mirror. For the first time in weeks, I looked. I no longer recognized my face, but I recognized the eyes. They were the ones who greeted me when I first arrived. They were Harris's. I now sit in the same cabin. The walls hum when the wind rises. The shadows whisper through the seams. And outside, I see headlights at the edge of the forest. Another one is coming. He'll bring maps. He'll ask questions. He'll think this is just a job. I'll leave the note, because that's how it begins. And in Wyrrow, it always begins again. Just as it always draws itself anew. Just as the shadows speak. We were all cartographers once.